Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So it is currently May 1st. I believe this video will be going up on May 2nd, but that means that it is time for my monthly wrap up. I am back on track of getting through at least 6 books a month. I actually read like 6 and a half, so I got through half of 2 books but didn't finish it, which would I guess would technically be like 7 books, but since I didn't finish them I can't count them. But whatever, I read a lot this month, which I'm very impressed by because I've really had like very little time to read. But yes, I did get to go through a bunch of books. I have been introduced to some new authors. The lowest rating I had this month was a 3-star, there was a 5-star, and I'm just very, very excited about it. So let's dive right on in. So first up, I read The Mist by the great Stephen King. I actually can't believe I had never read The Mist before. I've heard so many amazing things about it, and I've wanted to watch the movie for a while now because I've heard it's just absolutely incredible. And I picked it up at Wonder Books about a month ago, read it and devoured it, loved it. The main summer setting was awesome. I've actually now purchased, I think, 3 other books. Well, I've purchased 2 other books and then read 1 other book that it takes place in the summer during Maine, which is a really cool setting, and none of the other books are Stephen King, so excited with that. But for those of you guys who do not know, The Mist is probably one of Stephen King's most famous novellas, even though I would almost go and call it a novel because this one is over 230 pages long, but in Stephen King terms, this is a novella. It was originally released in one of his short story collections. I think it was Skeleton Crew. Yeah, it was originally Skeleton Crew. And immediately became one of his most well-known works. For those of you guys who do not know, this is the story of a man and his son who get trapped in a grocery store when a supernatural mist engulfs his small town of Maine, and some weird evil creatures might be showing some face while they are hiding out in the grocery store. But yes, I loved this. I don't want to give too much away from it. This is classic old school Stephen King horror. It is very scary. There's a lot of cosmic horror done more in creature feature style than cosmic horror style, if that makes sense. Whereas like the existential dread isn't kind of the focal point of the horror, and it doesn't kind of come out of nowhere. It's more just creatures we don't understand. We don't know where they are coming from. Could be interdimensional horror. There are a bunch of different types of creatures. Again, body horror, creature feature horror. And this was a 4-star read for me. Honestly, it was so close to being a 5-star read, but the main character does one thing that to me was just so out of character and kind of misogynistic that I was just like, I can't get behind you. He became this kind of beacon of hope and intelligence to this kind of just scumbag husband. And that really rubbed me the wrong way and kind of took me out of the morals of the story and felt out of place and really jarring and strange. But yeah, this is scary, this is fun, this is very, very original. I can't wait to watch the movie. It's just, oh, it's very creepy, and I loved every bit of it for the most part. And I highly, highly, highly recommend, if you are a fan of Stephen King and haven't read this, to pick this one up. I read it in like 2 days. It reads so quickly, and again, the setting of just Maine in the summer is just awesome. Alright, next up I read The Resting Place by Camilla Sten. This was one of the books that was on my most anticipated list of 2022. I have an entire review on this, so I won't go too in-depth on this. But unfortunately, this was a 3-star read for me. Camilla Sten is a Swedish author who is known for kind of her new wave gothic atmosphere. And while I really wanted this book to encapsulate that the way her prior novel, The Lost Village, did, this one just kind of fell short for me. It is the story of a woman who suffers from prosopagnosia, I think is how you say it. Basically face blindness, the inability to distinguish individual faces, and witnesses a murder of her grandmother and is helpless to help solve the murder because she can't identify the person who she saw committing it. This, for some reason, leads them to a weird, mysterious manor where more strange and mysterious things happen, and not all is what it appears to be. This was fun. This was fun. This is like a good beach read. You're not going to get anything super deep out of this book, and there's definitely some minor plot holes in it that I found a little aggravating. But this is a fun, spooky, unsettling read. Very, very mild on the horror. It is definitely more of a mystery, not even super thriller, but definitely a like kind of slow burn mystery. I do like how it weaves characters from the past into characters of the present. I thought it was really, really well. I thought it was a really interesting concept. I felt like it could have been done better, but having these two pasts intertwine really kept me on the edge of my seat trying to figure out what was going on. However, I did eventually figure a lot of it out, and it just wasn't that well explained towards the end. There's a big twist in this novel that just didn't have the climactic effect I think Camilla Sten was working towards, just because the twist that involves, just because the character involved in the twist was so minor that when it happened, I just didn't care. So again, fun book, not poorly written at all, just not greatly executed story-wise and twist-wise, but I wouldn't discourage anybody from reading it. If you like Camilla Sten's kind of slow burn reads, you'll probably enjoy this. Definitely more of a winter book. This is set during a snowstorm in Sweden. So trying to, you know, lean more towards like summer reads, and this definitely was a little chilly in atmosphere and setting. Ooh, flipping things. Okay, so I also have a full review on this book as well. This is Below by Laurel Hightower. This, I guess, is technically a novella. It's about 105 pages long, but if you do not know this about me, I love Mothman. Mothman is my favorite cryptid. I have a Mothman tattoo, so when I saw that there was a Mothman novella out and it had really good reviews, I was like, I need to read this. This is a really solid creature feature. This was a 4-star read for me. I pretty much adored everything about this novel except for the ambiguity and loose ends that we're left with. Which is, again, primarily because this was a novella and not a novel. I think this would have actually worked better as a novel, and we could have really gone deep into the mythos behind the creatures that are in here. Mothman is not the only creature to make an appearance. There's one other cryptid, and then I don't know if they're classified as cryptids, but there are other creatures in this. If you've seen The Descent, think The Descent. But yeah, I really, really, really had fun with this. I thought this was really cool. I liked our main character quite a lot. I liked the characters she interacted with and how those interactions led to more ambiguity within the story. The West Virginia setting was very, very nice. I loved the depiction of Mothman. I will say that the latter half of the book is a little more Mothman focused than the first half. So when I first started reading this, I remember being like, I feel like I'm not getting enough Mothman, but you will get Mothman in this. But again, yeah, 4-star read for me. My biggest complaint is I just wish this was longer. I really liked Laurel Hightower's writing. She kind of struggles a little bit, I would say, with the description of settings. That being said, the setting that we are primarily reading about is constantly changing and shifting, and it is a mysterious kind of entity in its own, but it was a little difficult to grasp based on her descriptions. So I don't know if that was intentional or if there was just like some kind of block between me, the reader, and her as the writer, but I did find the settings just a little difficult. But that was a 4-star read for me. Would definitely be interested in reading more from her, and if you guys have any recommendations for more cryptid horror or Mothman horror, please let me know. I read, what's the Max Brooks book called? Devolution. I read Devolution back in 2020, which is a Bigfoot book by Max Brooks, right? Yeah, Max Brooks. And I thought that was phenomenal. I loved that book. So cryptids are a big thing, but I feel like there's not a lot of really good cryptid horror out there, or I'm just not aware of it. So please let me know if you guys know of any good cryptid horror. Okay. Next up was The Burning Girls by CJ Tudor. I also have an entire video on this as well, but this was my 5-star read of the month. I know a lot of people are very divided on their opinions of CJ Tudor. A lot of people dislike her. They think she takes things to they think she takes a couple things to the extreme, which she absolutely does, and a lot of people will say that she rips off Stephen King quite a lot. I feel slightly the opposite. I feel like she pays homage to Stephen King, but she does pay quite a lot of homage to Stephen King. You can see that very heavily in her novel, The Chalk Man, which is pretty much a spin on It, minus the clown. But this is The Burning Girls, which is more a story of religious corruption and hypocrisy, which I know is also a theme in The Chalk Man, but it's definitely a little bit more prevalent in this. This story is about a vicar and their daughter. They move to a small town that is filled with secrets, including some murder mysteries that may or may not be connected to the historical burning martyrdom of some girls way back in like the 1500s. It gets kind of witchy, it gets kind of ghosty, but I wouldn't call it a ghost story. It's more of a murder mystery. It has an excellent twist ending that I didn't see coming, that I was very, very thrilled about. Kind of gives you Beetlejuice vibes with the daughter Flo. She's very much reminiscent of Lydia Dietz. She's also a photographer, and CJ Tudor is very much aware that she is doing that and does reference that quite a lot. Really liked the characters in this. The perspective changes were a little strange. It is told from the first person's perspective for the vicar Jack, and then the third person perspective for the daughter Flo, which at first was a little jarring, but I worked through it. Perspective is something that really, really bothers me if it's done strangely or artfully. In novels, just stick with first person or third person and please don't switch. And God forbid you do second person. J.K. or N.K. Jemisin, just her second person narrative, that killed me. Anyhow, I have a full review on this if you really want to deep dive on this, but I adored this. I will say there are moments of more extreme situations that I kind of wish I didn't have to read about. That happens as well in The Chalk Man. CJ Tudor takes bullying to a very kind of grotesque extreme that I find very inappropriate. And perhaps I find it so jarring because I've never experienced or heard of anything like that in like the bullying community. But I will say that I guess Stephen King's character Patrick Hockstetter kind of teeters on that same line as what happens with a lot of CJ Tudor's bullies. So strange, bizarre, but just like so you know, that is in this novel, nowhere near as prevalent as it was in The Chalk Man, but I know that that's something that people have hesitations with CJ Tudor's writing. That was pretty much my biggest complaint with this. There is a minor twist towards the end that I did predict, which I think is kind of acceptable. I think they kind of wanted you to predict that, so you're even more blindsided by the other twist ending. So take that as you will, but I really enjoyed this. I really like her fast-paced, kind of cliffhanger style of writing. The novel doesn't end on a cliffhanger, but a lot of the chapters do. So yes, 5-star read, very, very fun. Can't wait to see what else CJ Tudor has in store for us. Okay, so if you guys saw one of, I think it was my summer unboxing of my Persephone Lyco box, this was in there. I've been waiting for summer to come back around. Haha, until summer comes around. To get to this, but this is Until Summer Comes Around by Glenn Rolfe. This was advertised to me as the Lost Boys meets like Ronald Malfi meets Stephen King kind of thing. I would say sort of. This is a story about vampires hiding out in a beach town. The beach town, however, does happen to be in Maine during the summer. Glenn Rolfe does something that kind of bothers me, and I'm not quite sure why it bothers me so much, but I don't necessarily like when authors fully rewrite the rules of vampires. This is something that Silvia Moreno Garcia did in Certain Dark Things that would just... I don't dislike vampires being kind of changed, but when you change them so much that they're almost not vampires anymore, I wish that the author would just come up with a different creature. And so the rules of vampires in this novel were so vastly different than traditional vampires that I just kind of had a hard time accepting that they were vampires. So that was difficult for me to get around. I think this book definitely needed maybe one more editor to cut some stuff. There's a lot of excess information and details that I think just made the book drag on a little bit more than it should have. But overall, I did like this book quite a lot. This was a 4-star read for me. So this story is about a boy who meets like the girl of his dreams during the summer, that he is 15 turning 16. So there's a lot of like, am I getting my driver's license? And the girl has ties to vampires, and chaos and unfurls from there. This was a lot darker than The Lost Boys. The Lost Boys is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's also my favorite vampire story. And there's something very lighthearted about Lost Boys that was very much completely absent in this. This was very, very dark at times. It reminded me a lot of Autumn Turns into Winter by Jeff Strand, where the focus of like the coming of age is the relationship of a boy and like his first serious girlfriend, which is actually not a type of coming of age genre I tend to like. I know coming of age horror is like my favorite, but when it focuses just on like that first relationship, for some reason I feel like a lot of like the coming of age metaphors that you do in horror gets lost and becomes more literal. And so the idea of vampirism taking away like the girl of your dreams just felt literal. I don't know, but I felt like the metaphor was kind of lost because it wasn't just focused on like being young and then having like that loss of innocence. And then the amount of dark stuff that happens in this book was just kind of weighted. Like the book started off really lighthearted and fun. Like the first couple of chapters were great. And then the second half of the book was just so dark, and this poor main character just had his whole childhood ripped out from under him by all of these horrific things that it was just like really just very unsettling. Kind of like if you've ever seen the movie Stand By Me, like that last like talking montage when they tell you everything that happened to the boys after they grow up, and you're just like, well, that was like gut-wrenchingly depressing. Like you kind of get that feeling towards the end of this. So while this was very, very fun, and I did really, really love the setting. Oh my God, the setting of this Maine beach town was just incredible. Like I want to go to this town. It's a real town. It's called Old Orchard Beach. The setting was awesome. I just felt like the tone just became really, really heavy at times, and it wasn't quite what I wanted, but it was still a 4-star read for me. I did really enjoy a lot of it. I liked our main character quite a lot, but it did get heavy at times in places that I wish it kind of hadn't. So Lost Boys maybe not the best comparison, because if you're looking for something fun and lighthearted as Lost Boys is, this is not that book. Okay, and then last but not least, I read And Then I Woke Up by Malcolm Devlin. So if you watched my recent Nightworms unboxing video, this was in my Nightworms package. And when I read the back of this book, I was like, I do not understand what this book is about. So I wanted to read it. It's only like 160 pages or so. I thought it was going to be more like possession horror. It's more, I don't want to say zombie horror, but like zombie paranoia horror, if that makes sense. That's the best way I can think to describe it. It's probably a good book to go into blind, just because I feel like the more I would explain what's happening, the more you would lose. From the book, very much so in the vein of I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. Like going into that book blind is going to benefit you a lot more than knowing about it. So I definitely don't want to really spoil what this is about, but I will say that this book definitely is a very, 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 very strong metaphor for kind of the political media realm that we live in today. I feel like this book would not exist without COVID existing, the way that COVID was handled by the government in various different countries, by political leaders, the way that today's media really forms the way a lot of people think. There is a lot of social commentary in this book, metaphorically, obviously, but this is a social commentary book. And I think once I figured that out, I got a lot more out of it. I was definitely a little confused when I found, I think the author's British but lives in Australia now, because I felt like this could have been very much targeted towards like the hypocrisy of the American audience, and I would have gotten that metaphor a little bit more, but that's just me as an American. I'm not 100% sure how the media feel is in other countries right now, but I imagine in Australia and the UK it's probably similar. to what we've got going on here in America right now, but definitely the story has a very heavy political agenda in its social commentary. I don't necessarily think it sides one way or the other, but it is very much like this is happening and we should be aware of it because what happens in this book could be the result. Kind of what I got out of that. Anyway, like Until Summer Comes Around, this was also a 4-star read for me. Again, this book I think works really well being so short. Kind of wish it was a little bit longer so I could learn more about it. Also wasn't fully invested in all of the characters because I was still kind of a little confused going through it and reading about what was happening, and I think like the final payoff wasn't kind of like the gut-wrenching holy shit moment that I was expecting. It was just kind of obvious that that's what was happening, and that was fine. It made the point that it was trying to make, and there you have it. So yeah, 4 stars, definitely worth reading, definitely not possession horror whatsoever, like in the traditional vein of possession horror. I can understand why Nightworms would classify it as possession when you read like the metaphor in here. But really dope cover, I really like the cover. So yeah, those were the books that I had for this month. Again, I got through 6. I am currently reading, what was it, All of These Deceits or whatever, by C.S. Humble, which also came in my Nightworms package. I'm planning on getting through The Fervor by Alma Katsu very soon. I will get a review up on that. But yeah, I am very excited with this. I'm very happy with my reading this month. Only a 3-star read is my low book, and only one of those, so that's always fun. Anyway, as always, I post every Monday and Thursday, sometimes on Saturdays, and if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below, and I will catch you all in the next one. Mwah!